Hi stars, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Michael, a front-end engineer, and on my space here I share stuff related to tech and lifestyle. In our world today, we tend to build products and applications that speaks to a larger audience or a global audience. And in communicating to your audience, it is important to use a language they understand. In today's video, I'll be walking you through a step-by-step approach of adding VueI18n for language localization or for internationalization in your Vue application. Let's get right into it. What internationalization really means? The keyword here is international. Internationalization, sometimes shortened to I18n, has I and 18 letters in between before the letter N, and it is the practice of designing products and services that cater for an international market. This means that it operates and facilitates expansion into international markets. If you have an intention of building a product for the globe, then at the beginning of your product visualization and product planning, you should have internationalization, or we can also call it localization, as part of your planning. In this context of software engineering, accessibilities and user experience comes to play when you are planning to satisfy the users of a new product or of an existing product. Building for an international market is very great as it improves accessibility and the user experience. Enough of the talk, and let's get right into the code. We will be experimenting or implementing my language switch for the internationalization for today. To add VueI18n to our project, you need to go to the documentation and click on get started. Next we go to installation, and we will be using npm. So there are different ways to add this to your project. You can use a global import if you are using probably index.html, or you can use an ES module import. But in our case, we are using package managers, and I'll prefer to use yarn. I'll prefer to use npm rather. You can also choose to use yarn. It's just preference at this point. So I copy it and go back right into project and add it. This will take a bit of time and maybe not, and we already have it installed. Now if you go to package.json and you scroll through your dependencies, you should see VueI18n right here, and that is the latest version we have installed already. You should also try to run your project to see that nothing is breaking. So to run our project, I'll type in npm run dev. As you can see in the package.json file, this is what we use to serve our projects, dev, and it's pointing to Vite. So when we run this, we should have our project served locally, and in our case we have it in localhost 5173. When I click on this, I should have a blank page because currently we don't have any projects or any content in our project. Now it's time to set up internationalization in our Vue app, and I will go into my main.tx, which is more like the entry point for my app. And what I want to do next is to make use of VueI18n in this project. You can go through the documentation to see how it is being done and see how it is being imported right here according to the documentation. But here we are going to import create I18n from VueI18n. After that is done, you also want to use what you have imported. So I'm going to give you a little space for readable code. I'm going to say const I18n is equals to create I18n. It's going to be a function that takes in an object, and this is where we are going to put our options for Vue I18n. Assign create app to a constant, so we can also use it to bind our I18n declarations. So instead of having it this way, I'm going to take this off and create a constant called app, where I'm going to assign to create app, and it's going to take in our app variable. And then I'm going to go ahead to say app.use I18n, also app.mount, where we'll be mounting the ID, which is the entry to our HTML part of the app. Create I18n, which is a module from VueI18n, and we are making it available to be used in our application, and we assigned a constant of I18n. This is a variable, it can be called anything, but to make it readable and understandable, we call it I18n, and we assign it to the create I18n module, where we'll be declaring different options that's going to be working with our Vue I18n module. And then we use it in our app, and also mount our app ID, which can be found in the index.html. If you see this is where the whole HTML file is being served right inside this div. So that is why we have to mount it also here in line 14. It's like a language pack for my application, and I'm going to create it in an object. In this application, I just want to create a small application where I can switch the languages of a simple welcome message. For bigger applications, it is advisable to have this in an external JSON file where you declare all of your language packs, and you can also use an external CMS like directors, and there are a lot of CMS out there that you can choose to use. In this case, I will just, since it's a simple application, I'll be declaring all of that in my main.ts file. So I will have the message value and have a hello message, says hello, welcome to the world of internationalization. I'll repeat this for 2 other languages, in Portuguese and in Japanese. We are going to be passing in the variables or the values needed in this object. And for the sake of this project, we will be using the local fallback local global injection and the messages value, and this is the messages that we have already instantiated. Of course, there are a lot of other object values that are accepted by the create I18n module. You can, for larger applications, you can check out the documentation to see what other values you probably might need for your project. So I'll go ahead and type in all of that. We have a local value, and I'll be setting it to English, and just for sake of explanation, I'll call it that is a local value. And we also want to have a fallback state, so it is a fallback local. Let's say in a case where your value is not being injected, or your initial language is not being injected, you want to have a fallback. And we also have a global injection value. I'll be setting it to true. And now I'm going to also pass in my messages value, which is this object that is being created here. The global injection value is to make sure that our messages object is accessible anywhere in the app. You can make use of the messages object anywhere around the app with the use of this, with this being set to true. If you don't have this, by default it is set to false. If we set it to false or we don't have it, we won't be able to have access to this messages object in our application. Our app.vue on the page of our application, and we want to type in the message we already declared in our messages object, and I'll be using an h1 here, a heading tag, and like our normal Vue application, to access object values or whatever values or functions, you need to use the interpolation. And in a minute I'll be explaining what this t value is. We have messages dot hello, and when you save this and go to your browser, you should see the default value that you have set, which is English. And now what this does is, it is a Vue I18 keyword that allows Vue I18 to change the local without having to rewrite the template every time. So it is used to also support like the global application. Once you add this, when we switch our languages, Vue I18 knows that this value is meant to change without having to reload the whole templates, and that is a very good feature of this Vue I18n, and that is much of the work that the team has done for us. So by just adding this before the value declaration, you should be able to change your values easily without having to refresh the template. the language switch itself. That's a drop down where I'm going to toggle between languages and that are available in my app. And first, for reactivity, I'll need to import ref from Vue, and I'll have to declare a const of locales of the languages I'll be using. So ref for reactivity, and it is an array, and the first language I want to put in is English. I also want to put in Portuguese, and I want to put in Japanese as already declared in my main.ts in the messages array. So I'll save this and I'll come over to my main part of the application. I'm going to create a select tag. I can just give it a name of language switch, an ID. I'm going to give it the same ID, guys. Language switch, and do my locales, and I will say v for the value of each locale and their index in the locales array itself. And I'm going to create a key in my, I want the key to be I want it to be actually local dash, and because I want it to pick each of the index like local 1, local 2, local 3, so I want to put a template string here to say pick the index of each local. And now I also want to bind the value of each local to this option, so I will have this as local, and inside the option between the open and the closing brackets I'll have an interpolation of local. When you save this and go to your browser, you should have something like this. So I'm going to zoom in, and when you do your drop down, your languages should switch rather. The language is not switching. Let's see what the issue is here. Declare a Vue model here. A Vue model of, this is like one of the features implemented by the team who created this library. So we have to bind our local to VueI18n. So when you save this, don't forget we need to put our Vue model here. When you save this and you go to your browser, you can try to refresh, and when you switch between the languages, you should see your language changing. And notice how the page is not refreshing while you change the language. I think this is a very, very powerful tool for internationalization, and it's going to create a great user experience for your users. I hope by now you already grabbed one or two things from this video and you see the importance of internationalization in your application. Kindly like, comment, and also subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet, and I see you in the next one. Ciao.